And I can confirm that we are live. Good job,
Fab.
Ed.
I can click the buttons with the best of them.
I'm going to leave that pulled up in the background just in case we have a chat come across.
Ed and Greg, how we doing today?
Good. We are sans Ron, so it's me and Greg today.
Oh, all right. Hope everything's all right for on today.
Yeah, he's got a personal situation he's dealing with, so it's hopefully we'll won't be long out though. But Greg, I'll open. You don't have to. I figured you. It is a Ron open week. But
if you want me to screw it up, I'm happy to open.
I figure, hey.
So let me go ahead and get some levels for everybody real quick. I'll start with you, Ed. Can I please get a count back from 5 for you?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, awesome, sounding great. And then Greg, can I please get a count back from 5 for you?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, awesome, sounding great. We got about 3 minutes until showtime.
Cool.
Fantastico.
And Ed, my notes made sense to you. It's just a general outline. I mean, we may not get to all of it. So
no, I'm going to throw it your way. We can even start going through the 10 takeaways and just relate the stuff that you have in the later back to the 10 takeaways. That might be a way to approach it as well. But I'm just going to follow your lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of these. No, I mean, these can go in the show notes if you want. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because the person who normally does the show notes is not available today to do the show notes. That's a problem, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you can use this as show notes, and then a lot of these bullet points are really just truly meant to be initial talking points, things that we go through relatively quickly. And there are a couple of things in here I wanted to call up because they're just so darn cool when you think about what it means for the future when you look at these trends. So
yeah, there's one I sort of wanted to avoid, the synthetic human.
Yeah, is that one sort of stunned me.
Yeah, let's just pass on that one.
Yeah. I just removed it. But I did keep the one in there about CRISPR creating non-browning avocados. That would make me
well, I don't know that it gets much better than that, except I'm not an avocado guy, but Hector is. Hector loves him some avocados.
Oh, goodness, man. They're delicious.
I don't like the texture, believe it or not.
Yep.
Taste is okay. Like if you mix avocado in something, I'm fine with it.
Guacamole is like one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, but I can't even do guacamole because it's too textury. But like an avocado-based salsa where they have like that's fine. More pureed. I'm okay.
Alrighty then.
I've always, but I have always been like a texture, that's always been my. It's never been like a taste thing where I was like, oh, I don't want it. It was always texture.
About 30 seconds.
More information than you and the streaming audience ever wanted to know.
Right. Oh, that's good. To this day, if you want to see my 15-year-old son, start crying, put mashed potatoes on his plate.
Oh, really? Can't do it, huh?
No.
Weird. That's interesting.
I'm going to put weight on the kid.
Wow.
All right, we are coming up to showtime. You ready for your accounting?
Absolutely.
All right, have a great show. Going in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to the Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Knowledge Economy. Sponsored by Woodard. Building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. I'm Ed Kless with my friend and not normal co-host, Greg Tirico. And on today's show, folks, we are going to be talking about tech trends for 2025. Had trouble getting that out, Greg, because normally the flow is just Ron Baker, but Ron is unfortunately not able to join us today. He's got a personal issue that he is dealing with, so we wish him well with all that. So This early in baseball season, we are calling on the great Greg Tirico to come up with an outstanding pinch hit that I know he will. So you're up here, Greg. It's the pitch is in and ready to smack it to the fences. So
Oh,
welcome back to the Soul of Enterprise. You've done a number of these before, so you're kind of it's kind of old hat.
yeah, yeah, I'm good with this, and we are well prepared today to provide the audience with a fascinating look into tech trends, not just in 2025. The report that we're referencing today is labeled 2025 because they do it annually, and we'll explain who they are in just a moment. But it looks pretty far out into the future. And as you've said before, and I agree with you, I am a techno optimist. This report every year just makes me giddy when I look at it and I think about the possibilities.
Well, and there's a lot of it to be giddy about. It's over 1,000 pages. The
It's,
actual PDF file's ridiculously long.
yeah.
So I don't know if you made it through all 1,000 pages. I know I sure didn't, and certainly did not read every footnote because there's plenty of 4-point font on multiple occasions in this thing. But again, so I think it's a good. We have done shows similar to this before. Started off with Mary Meeker and her Tech Trends report that you did for us way back when. But this has evolved. So take us through the background on this now.
Yeah, so Mary Meeker used to do the Internet Trends report when she was working for a prominent venture capital firm, and we would take what she reported, generally speaking, on stage once a year, and turn that into a show for listeners of the Soul of Enterprise. Mary Meeker does not do that anymore, and this report is unrelated, but it is the spiritual successor to Mary Meeker's Internet Trends Report in my mind. And it comes from a now renamed company. They used to be called the Future Today Institute. Now they are called the Future Today Strategy Group. The founder of the firm is also a professor at NYU's Stern School of Business, but this is her primary full-time job. She is a futurist and a strategist at Future Today Strategy Group. Her name is Amy Webb, and the 2025 Tech Trends Report is available for free on their website. There's a team of people that are referenced inside of this document that is over 1,000 pages long, and it's broken out into sections. So this year's Future Today Strategy Group 2025 Tech Trends Report, I want to make sure we give credit where credit is due, uh, breaks down the tech trends they see into 15 categories. Now, we don't have time to go through all 15
No,
categories,
we do not.
right? We will call some of them out, and we will ignore some of them. But again, this Tech Trends report is available for download, and the download link is FTSG for Future Today Strategy Group, ftSG.com/trends. There's actually a video up there as well of Amy doing a presentation in, I believe, Sao Paulo, Brazil, introducing the new company branding because they changed their name, as well as this year's Tech Trends report. Of the 15 categories, a couple of them stuck out to me. Things like artificial intelligence, no shock there. Bioengineering, I'm fascinated by what continues to happen in the bioengineering space. And then there are a couple of other categories that we'll touch on today. Things like mobility, robotics, drones, entertainment, space. Oh, that's going to be a good one. We'll get into the space here in just a minute. So that's an overview of the report, why it exists. And Ed, if you want to get into it, I say we start with the artificial intelligence section. It's at the top of the report, and it's clearly pretty important to them.
Well, yeah, let's jump in and talk AI, and let's just give credit where credit is due because I had to so quickly put together the show description for this one. Not a few minutes, an hour ago, went into our artificial intelligent intern and said, "Hey, listen, I need a show description. I'm talking to Greg Tirico. Here's a link to the report. Come out and give me 6 sentences." Boom, and then it did something different, Greg, because this is new as far as AI is concerned, or at least ChatGPT. It said, since there's no guest on this show because it's Greg, would you like me to generate a graphic for you? And it just asked. I'm like, sure, why the heck not? So it's even beginning now to become cognizant of the fact that, oh, you may need something else. I know you usually want a picture of whoever the guest is, but in this case, maybe you want something that's a little bit different. And would you like me to do it for you? Absolutely. And so there you have it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. This is a newer feature that OpenAI rolled out into all of the 4.0 models, I think just this week, if not
Yeah.
maybe last week, right? And what's most interesting about this, at least from my business's perspective, is that we have been speaking with a prospect. It doesn't matter what they do, right? But they need really good product photography in order for us to help them. We can't help them sell their product with really terrible product photography, which is where they are today. They verbally committed to us on the phone to become a customer, and I pumped the brakes. This is about a month ago. And I said, tell you what, I would feel really terrible taking your money if you don't have your product photography lined up yet, because we can't do anything until your photographer comes in and takes some great pictures. And they already had a photographer booked and ready to go. So I didn't want to take their money and do nothing for them, right? This past week, I reached out to them and they said, well, we still don't have the product photographer. Do you have any alternatives? I went out to ChatGPT using their new image generation tool that's baked into their models and generated a beautiful product shot of their packaging. They're an outdoor brand. Their packaging sitting on a log in the woods with a campfire, sent it along to the owner. He was like, more of this, please. I want more of this. It was absolutely stunning how quickly and with one sentence I could replace a product photographer. Now, the whole point isn't to replace people, but I can generate these images so quickly and so easily, and now they are photorealistic. We've seen images from ChatGPT in particular. When you look at them, you go, okay, that's an AI image. I can tell. Your brain sees something in the images previously that would tell you that these were AI generated images. This week, I had no idea this was an AI generated image. It was so stunningly photorealistic and generated with one sentence in about 2 minutes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But the photographer does have to worry about that to some degree. I mean, even if you take some of those images and then incorporate them, they're going to lose some of the time that they would normally take on editing for sure. Because if I just need something with the picture and then I can put it in any scenario,
Yeah.
going to make it
Yeah.
happen. So
Yeah,
yeah,
most
yeah.
certainly. I mean,
All
we
right.
should all be a little worried, right? But what I like the phrase though. Instead of worrying about it, I like the phrase that AI is not. You've said this before. AI is not going to replace you.
Mm-mm.
Someone who knows how to use AI better than you is going to replace you. So
That's true.
just keep up. Just keep up. Experiment. In fact, your show sponsor Woodard, Joe Woodard and Heather Satterley just took an AI certification course from Brown University, and just today, so it will drop in a few weeks, they recorded a debrief about the class that they took. And both Joe and Heather said, in summary, learn this stuff, experiment with it, have fun with it. You need to understand, based on the GPT of your choice, what
Hmm.
these tools can do for you. And if you haven't already started experimenting, you're falling behind. So start experimenting and having fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I was going to say the joke, and I'm just and their class is already out of date. So
Yep.
yeah, but conceptually stick with it. All right, so let's talk about the report though. What are the findings? Your key interpretation of the findings in the AI area?
Yeah, so in the AI area, there were two things that we've talked about previously on bonus episodes and probably also during regular shows with you and Ron. One of them is DeepSeek. So we know that out of China comes this thing called DeepSeek. It temporarily crashes NVIDIA's stock. People get a little concerned. Oh my goodness, the Chinese have done what it took us hours, what it took us years to do in only a few months, and they did it at a fraction of the cost, right? Well, the folks at Stanford did the same thing, and now this is beginning to be referred to as small language models. We know LLMs, they're large language models, and the reason that the DeepSeek work and the Stanford work is being referred to as small language models is because these models don't have as much reasoning built into them. They're not as full featured, but they're really handy, and I foresee easily a near-term future in which, for example, WWDC from Apple is June of this year. They've already booked the dates. We already know when the keynote is going to be. Is it time now for Apple to say to the world, you can put your small language models on our iPhones? We know the hardware is fully capable. And what happens when we start walking around with GPT models in our pockets, right? That opens up a world of opportunity. And that's certainly one of the things that I pulled out from the report, is that these models are getting cheaper to develop. they're getting cheaper to modularize, and they're getting cheaper in terms of compute as well. So the large language models will continue to be there, and they will continue to be full featured and incredibly amazing when it comes to generating results. But these small language models are becoming more and more accessible every day. In fact, Gail Pooley last week on the show referenced a number of these small language models. And now that's not a phrase I've heard catch on too much, but a phrase I have heard catch on is agentic AI. Right. And you and Ron are using this phrase as well. This was also in the report. Agentic AI is absolutely, in my mind now, a trend to watch. You can think of agentic AI as autonomous decision making. I like to refer to it as business workflow on steroids. So this is an AI engine like a ChatGPT being given the ability to make independent decisions based on the data that it has. Instead of you prompting it for things, instead of you continuously having a conversation with it, you say, I want to, and this is a lame example, but you can say, I want to make dinner tonight, and this is what I want to make for dinner. Can you find the recipe? Well, we know today that ChatGPT can do that for you. But an agent would say, okay, cool. I found a recipe. I've ordered the ingredients from Instacart, and they will be at your house in 30 minutes. That's business workflow on steroids. That's agentic AI. And I see there's a phrase inside of the report, the middle office is melting. So it's not the front office, it's not the back office, it's all of that in between. It's all of the work that previously required a little bit of human touch in order to make businesses run efficiently, but the middle office is now melting, and it's melting because AI is becoming so much more full-featured, and agentic AI is very much a thing when it comes to business workflow.
Wow, it really is quite unbelievable. And I want to touch on a couple of those points when we get back from the break, but I want to remind our listeners they can get a hold of Ron or me, or even Greg. He'll answer sometimes too. If you send an email to asktsoe@verasage.com. Of course, the website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. Don't forget our Patreon channel, where you can go out and get the show commercial free, as well as our bonus episodes, which we record after each episode. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
All clear. Just let me know when you're ready for your counting back.
Yeah, just give us a few. Because Greg, I want to push on this small language model a little bit and see if you can help me understand something a little bit. I think I know what they are, but I want you to see if your understanding is in alignment with my understanding as well. So, did you want to go to biotech next, or did you want to hit that metaverse for a little bit?
Nah, let's go into biotech.
Biotech after that? Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll do that.
I just love the idea of these Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. They're every time I look at them, I'm like, maybe I should buy them. But I think they're still a little too early adopter for me to drop $300 on them. But I'm fascinated by what they're capable of.
Does it have the necessary killer app, which is I want to know who that guy is?
Not yet.
And I can. That's what I need. That's the thing I need it for. Everything else is okay. I need that killer app. All right, Jordan, you can give us a countdown.
All right, no problem. Coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we are back on the Soul of Enterprise talking about the FTSG 2025 Tech Trends Report. And Greg, we had just left off with you talking a little bit about some of the trends in AI. And one of the ones that you mentioned was the small language models versus large language models. And I've been reading about this, and I'm still struggling to try to identify exactly what this is. I probably should just ask ChatGPT to explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader, and then I'll probably have a better understanding of it. But so my understanding is that the small language models is two things. One, it's less data that's being fed in. So you can target it at a specific data set. So for example, you might want to say, for our audience, target it at, the IRS regulations. We can say, no, we want you to go really deep into this IRS regulations, and that's what you need to concentrate on. And simultaneously, it also does not go through as many recursions and connections that the large language models go through. I've watched some really good math videos on this. 3 brown, 1 blue is probably the best explanation that I've ever seen of this. And I don't claim to understand the math, but he does a really good job of getting the breakdown that what all of this stuff is really about is creating spatial, multi-dimensional relationships between concepts and words and running them through this recursion techniques. Like it's people say it's a plagiarism machine. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's a really good way to think about it. I think that that's what they're seeing as the result oftentimes in cases, but that's really not what's going on. It's really a massive relationship database. So did I get that right on the small language models that it's a potentially smaller data set that we're not feeding it in this massive everything we possibly know. And it's also going through fewer of these recursion steps to get an understanding to create those relationships.
You did get that right. And the way that I think about the fewer recursions is I use the word reasoning. So it
Okay,
lacks the
yeah,
reasoning
better.
power that your larger models have. And that's why they are infinitely more scalable. They're smaller in size. They're engineered for speed. And the most exciting trend when I think about this to me is the ability to put these models on mobile devices.
So you basically is your smaller device set perhaps your device, your data set on your mobile device?
Well, I certainly would love to see that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Apple, I'm looking at you, but they've backed off a little bit in a shocking turn recently on the public commitments they made to developing that kind of artificial intelligence based on your specific data at last year's Worldwide Developers Conference, and this is a bit of a stain on their reputation, which Apple isn't used to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds very easy to say, why can't my data on my device power my language model? But apparently, it's much more difficult than that because even a company like Apple, with effectively unlimited engineering resources in comparison to me or you, they can't pull it off yet.
Interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention with regard to AI is you use that, and this was a phrase from the report, autonomous decision making. I don't think that's exactly correct, at least the way that we would use it. You can give it a task to do, and it will try different things in the decision making process. But it's not going to come out and say to you, "Here's the decision I've made about this." Right? I just see it is it's really more trial and error and seeking to understand what's going on, and then trying stuff as opposed to really making a decision per se.
Yeah, I that feels like it is technically correct, right? What
Hmm.
you just said, and I think it's just really a matter of semantics at that point. We can
Yeah,
call it a
I like
decision.
your
It's not
phrase better,
truly.
by the way.
Yeah.
That business workflow on steroids. So
Yeah, there you go. Right.
yeah.
Because we love business workflow, especially for those of us that truly hate filling out things like expense reports. Right. I think those days I come on. I'm not going out on a limb here. Those days are numbered. Right. We're not going to
Yeah.
be doing much of that anymore.
Well, it depends. All right. Next up, let's talk biotech.
Oh man. So inside of the report they have a biotechnology section, and they went through initially a few real world industrial applications of biotechnology that are currently in the market, not being tested, they're being sold at scale. And I'm just going to rattle off a couple of them, right? The first one is crops engineered for climate resilience and higher yield, right? They don't say they do say climate change in the report, but I don't think that's the right way to look at it, right? Climates change, soil structure changes. And as a result, we are now bioengineering crops that have a greater resilience to those changes and provide for higher yields. We dare I say we have an abundance or a superabundance
Ooh, to coin a
of
phrase.
crops, right? Yeah. The next one, engineered microbes producing materials that are stronger than steel. That is a biotechnology application that is in the market today and being sold at scale. Restaurants serving meat grown from cells rather than raised on farms. You and Ron did a show about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This
Mm-hmm.
this
Yep.
lab grown meat is continuing to push the envelope of what we consider feasible when it comes to manufacturing food. Another one, fashion brand selling jackets made from spider silk produced by engineered yeast. That is just crazy to me. And it's real. It's here today. Fashion brands are using that technology. Construction companies using self-healing concrete created by bacteria. So, for example, I'm in a slightly older home, so I had to destroy and rip up my driveway about 2 years ago. That's real fun, right? You want to talk about adulting, go ahead and pay for a new driveway, right? That's not a cost you're like just itching to spend money on, right? But I've noticed over the last 2 years that there are now pock marks in that once beautiful brand new driveway, right? And it doesn't bother me, but self-healing concrete would be pretty amazing. And it would also mean that we need to pour less concrete for large projects, right? And then the last one that is in the market today is related to beauty products. Some beauty products now contain proteins designed by AI and grown in fermentation tanks. This is fascinating to me because when you take multiple trends like artificial intelligence and biotechnology and you marry them together, you get beauty brands that are making products with AI designs and proteins grown in fermentation tanks. And I can be honest, I don't even know what that is. Right?
Right,
But
right.
it's fascinating inside the report to look at some of these real world at scale biotechnology trends in the market today.
Yeah, and these are some of these that really freak people out, especially like the engineered crops and all of this stuff, the GMOs, and but my response to that is we are been using genetically engineered organisms for decades, if not centuries, in a lot of cases. Bananas as they exist today are all clones, right?
Right.
The corn as it exists today would not exist if it weren't for it. I think there's so many vegetables that we would trace back to, like broccoli. For example, one of the things that I think is really interesting, Brussels sprouts are not little cabbages; they're actually big broccoli. They're big, like if you look at a broccoli floret and you see the tiny little green thing. Imagine that like blown up. That's what Brussels sprout is, and they all come from the same plant originally that we have just engineered over time. We're just doing it faster now with this technology, and I suppose there could be a challenge for that. And I actually like asking the question to vegan and vegetarian friends of mine is if they will eat the genetically engineered and produced meat.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, well, they don't do it for moral reasons. It's like, okay, well, if you are a vegan or vegetarian for moral reasons, what about this? I mean, it actually removes that as a possibility. So just curious if you've ever talked to someone on that, and most of them are like, nope, I still wouldn't eat it anyway. It's like, well, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about that. And if it's for health reasons, then obviously that argument still stands.
sure,
If it's a moral objection, then that's a pretty gray area in my mind at this point because Fred the chicken
right,
in the Soul of Enterprise episode in which you and Ron talked about
was
this
running
was
around.
running around on the ground while they ate Fred the chicken, right? They'd used his DNA in a lab to grow himself, right? So yeah, that's a real gray area for me. I'm not sure. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, so I don't actually know what somebody's answer might be. But again, if it's for health reasons, obviously that still stands. If it's for moral reasons, I think there's a gray area there now, and I don't know what their decisions are going to be.
Yeah, yeah,
One of the areas in biotechnology that has fascinated me for a long time, and I know you followed it as well, is CRISPR.
yeah.
CRISPR is a gene editing technology that was developed in academia, and it allows us to modify genes, to modify DNA, and produce different results. The most recent example I have from the report that involves CRISPR gene editing is from a company called Editas. They used Edit 101, that's their technology, and they designed it to treat Leber congenital amaurosis. And I'll get to what that is in just a minute.
Sounds
It's one of the,
horrible.
what's that?
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, right. It's one of the first CRISPR therapies to restore vision in patients with inherited blindness.
Wow.
So this year or last year, but recently, this company used CRISPR to restore vision to those that had inherited blindness. That is that is the future happening right now in my mind, and it's really exciting.
That is just unbelievable. And of course, you had one earlier that you mentioned, but the non-browning avocados. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah, yeah. So they all scientists have also used CRISPR, the same technology, to create things like seedless blackberries. I love blackberries. I cannot stand the little seeds that get stuck in my mouth or in my teeth. It's infuriating. Or to make non-browning avocados, very much a thing. And I know these examples sound pedantic, but they're not, because the amount of food waste has got to be through the roof when it comes to spoilage, given that we transport avocados from who knows where to make it to my house. And in order to make that happen, if we can use fewer chemicals, but we can edit the structure of these fruits and vegetables so that they last longer, I'm on the side of edit the fruits and vegetables so that they last longer and you have to use fewer chemicals.
Right. And then we add this into, the drug discovery and the ability to, even adapt your own DNA. So what you could potentially do is create a DNA version of yourself, or that goes and fights a cancer that you have inside your own body. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent, the possibilities here. Now,
Yeah.
I haven't heard of any specific artificially intelligent design drugs hitting market yet, but that doesn't mean that one hasn't. So,
Yeah, yeah. If you do a little, I don't know either, but on jumping off of that point that you just made, if you do a little bit of research on Google about recent gene therapy technologies that have broken through, it feels every day like we are getting closer and closer to the penultimate in medicine, which is curing cancer.
mhm.
We
Yeah.
seem to be developing technologies at a rapid rate right now that are in either some kind of a test treatment or coming out of the labs very soon that target cells in your body and trick cancer so that it doesn't continue to grow.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Well, Greg, this is fantastic and fascinating, but we want to remind our listeners they can get a hold of Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@verisage.com. Of course, the website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. We'd love for you to go out and rate this podcast. Go to ratethispodcast.com/TSOE. And if you do rate this and leave us a review, we promise to read it on the air. Also, a reminder that you can submit questions to us that we will answer on the air. Go to thesoulofenterprise.com/question, or even questions. I think the singular and the plural both work. And you can record a question that we will play and answer for you on the air. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
All clear. So let me know when you're ready for your counting back.
Okay.
We'll obviously have time for two more. I want to save the space one for last, if
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. And then the
Yep.
other one we can do now is mobility, robotics,
Yeah.
drones.
Let's do that. That's fine. That'll work.
Right. The computing one is really interesting, but it's heavy, right? Because there's a lot of information in there about biocomputers and organoid intelligence, right? I mean, it is propeller head stuff, right? Because they're taking biology now and treating it like a computer so that you can store information using living cells,
Uh-huh.
which is not quantum computing is off on its own, but it's just crazy to me. And I do have at the end, because we'll be short on content if we do space for the last one. I do
Mm-hmm.
have a couple of, in the report, there are these scenario plans. So they go out many years and they create this scenario, and
Mm-hmm.
they postulate what the future could look like by telling a story. And I've got a couple of
Mm.
paragraphs that we can read that will sort of pique people's interest in getting into the
All
report and
right.
maybe just reading the scenario plans.
Fun. Okay, so we'll mobility robotics next, and then
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of computing as well. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Jordan, whenever you're ready.
All right. Coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we are back on the Soul of Enterprise. Sans Ron today. He is dealing with a personal issue that we hope resolves itself quickly. But have with me instead Greg Tirico. We are talking about the 2025 technology trends as put out by the FTSG. What's that stand for again? Greg,
Future
FTSG,
Today Strategy Group.
Future Day Strategy Group. And next up in this report is mobility, robotics, and drones. So, what do you got for me there?
Yeah, so let's talk about mobility first. I love the idea of electric vehicles as mobile power plants, and I
Hmm.
don't think this is a far off technology trend. And I'll say that when I first saw the Ford F-150 Lightning, that's the electric version of the most popular truck sold in the world, probably the most popular vehicle sold in the world, possibly, right? When I first saw the electric version with the plugs in the back, you can plug in your coolers, you can plug in your whatever it is you need. I thought this is the ultimate tailgating machine. And then I went out looking for a hitch that you can a rack that you can attach to the trailer hitch that holds a TV, and I found one immediately. So
Oh
in
my
your
gosh.
mind, right? You have a rack that you can attach to your trailer hitch. You can put a TV on it. You can power the TV from the back of the truck because there are plenty of plugs. You can spin up a sound system. You can spin up a hotspot of some kind, and you have an outrageously cool tailgating truck. I want this, right? So the idea that EVs are mobile power plants makes a lot of sense. And we have me personally, we have multiple electric vehicles in the household. So we have two very large battery packs that sit in the garage for, most of the evening, for example, right? When you buy the Powerwall from Tesla, all Tesla's doing is taking one of those battery packs, turning it up on its side, putting it in a case, and mounting it on your wall. And they're terribly expensive. They're like $9,000-$10,000 per pack, right? I did the math earlier to determine how many I would need to power my home for about 15 hours, and I need two. So if my cars become truly mobile power plants and I can reverse the flow of power from the car to the home, I have 15, 16 hours of quote unquote generator power sitting in my garage because we have multiple electric vehicles. And that to me is not just a fun thing to think about. I think it has a lot more implications long term because it doesn't have to be consumer vehicles, right? You can think about the military applications, right? You can get a vehicle into a war zone. You can get a vehicle to troops who need help, and you've got this a massive battery pack waiting to help power their efforts. And that's just one example, right? It doesn't have to be a Tesla sitting in a garage waiting to deliver power to your home because the power went out.
Just think how long you could use your cell phone for if you just used the battery in the Tesla.
Oh my gosh. Thank goodness. Because that's what I need. I need to use my cell phone more.
But
That,
in all seriousness, I think you're right. I mean, that is usually right out of the plot of a Star Trek or Star Wars, where some engineer is told to reverse the flow of the energy from one thing to the other so that we can power up something that was not working. So
yeah.
it's within the realm of possibility. It's got to just be something that has to be figured out. And I guess there may be some safety concerns because when you're dealing with that much power coming back into your house, you don't want to overload your grid either. But you're right. I mean, the ultimate tailgating machine, that Ford F-150 Lightning, might actually get people to buy that truck for go to football games. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
In fact, a good friend of mine has one. I've been in it. I've driven in it, and Ford did a great thing here because they made an electric vehicle that is a Ford F-150. They didn't feel the need to do something crazy and ridiculous and make it its own thing as an EV. It's a Ford F-150 with a battery pack. So truck owners seem to really appreciate the fact that they didn't do anything ridiculous with the vehicle and they just swapped out the engine for a motor and a battery pack.
Interesting. All
Yep.
right.
So here's a fun fact I researched while reading through the report. Tesla now has 60,000 superchargers worldwide. Those are charged. So think 60,000 cables that you can plug into their cars or other cars from Audi to Mercedes to Porsche to Honda.
Not different independent stations. You're talking about the actual number of charge, like gas
Yep.
pumps would be the
Yeah, like
equivalent.
gas pumps. So they have 7,000 locations
Okay.
across the world. And I was like, okay, how does that compare to say like an ExxonMobil, right? There are 11,000 ExxonMobil gas stations in the United States.
Mm.
So there's still obviously a huge advantage from a coverage perspective on the gas side, right? But I think the Tesla supercharging system is sneaking up on people if you hadn't previously researched those numbers. Tesla has almost as many charging locations across the world as Exxon has gas stations in the United States. So we're getting there. There's still a gap when it comes to charging infrastructure in support of electric vehicles. And I'm not an advocate for electric vehicles in the garage of every person. It is, you put wind turbines up where the wind blows, you put solar panels up where the sun shines. Like I'm actually an advocate for diversification of both energy and transportation needs.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, if Bucky's has anything to say about it, because every single new Bucky's that gets built down here in Texas has like 100, not just gas pumps, but has Tesla charging stations.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's ridiculously large.
the Bucky's that I was at 3 weeks ago, because we went on a Boy Scout trip and we had to stop at a Bucky's, of course, right?
Hmm.
Not only had 25 Tesla superchargers, they also had about five larger Tesla superchargers that are intended for use by the Cybertruck only. So
Mm.
Bucky's is putting in high-powered Cybertruck superchargers as well as Tesla superchargers, and Tesla's striking deals now with those other automobile companies that I'd referenced. You can take your Mercedes EQB and plug it into a Tesla supercharger, and it works just fine because they've struck deals with each other.
Okay.
Right.
All right. What else is happening in mobility?
Yeah, the other thing that I think is potentially sneaking up on us is that at this point, autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles, most popular through Waymo, for example, I believe they face more regulatory scrutiny than technology barriers right now. Uh, we know that, for example, Uber was running a self-driving division at one point. They've since shut it down. They unfortunately killed a human being in the road as a result of their self-driving technology. And of course, this made lots of headlines. And it is truly a loss of life is never something to joke about. It is truly unfortunate. But we all feel and maybe know deep down that humans are the most erratic thing on the road. And self-driving vehicles long term will actually be a safer thing. Waymo is now operating in Phoenix, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin. In those four cities, you can get a self-driving ride in coordination with Uber. So Uber partners with Waymo, and Waymo plans on expanding that program to 10 more cities this year in 2025, including Atlanta, where I live. So once I'm able to get into a self-driving vehicle, I will report back to you and Ron.
Well, I've used one in San Francisco, the Waymo in San Francisco. It wasn't in coordination with Uber yet; it was still a separate app. But I think that's a relatively new development that they're in partnership with one another. But it was very cool technology, and it works. And yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those things that Ron and I like to talk about. Is we don't have to. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right? I think it's 40,000 people are killed on the U.S. roads every year. So it just has to be less than that. And that's what we really should shoot for. We shouldn't be perfection. The thing that's yes, you're right, regulatory. But the other thing, and that's related to regulatory, that is holding it back is how do we delve out the insurance claim? Like how is that handled? Will my self-driving car, whether it's Tesla or some other thing, if I get into an accident, who is liable? Is it me now because I've had it in self-driving mode, or is it the company that wrote the self-driving software? And then that gets to the point where, well, if there's no steering wheel at all, well, what am I supposed to do, right? So it really can't be me. But I will say this, and I'm curious if you've heard anything on this too. What has been a colossal failure is the switch from the autonomous mode to the human mode. There's really no way that they have been able to figure out a way to successfully transfer that over in a rapid enough time that the human can take intervention and do something about it, because our brains weren't following along, right? We can't process everything, even if it does throw it over to us and say, hey, listen, you got to do something about this. It's not good because our brains are not in following along with what the software is doing. So anyway, just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, at a very, very tactical level, and from my personal experience, when I turn self-driving off on my car, the car just lets go, right? Like I need to have my foot on the accelerator. I need to have my hands on the wheel. It's just done the minute that I turn self-driving off. So
Hmm.
even then, when it doesn't need me to take over, the transition isn't smooth. Now, what you're talking about is very different, and it's the transition that needs to be made based on what our brains are paying attention to.
Hmm.
One of the things that scares me about self-driving when I'm using it personally is that my brain has the extra mental capacity to wander, and
Hmm.
it's inevitable. And
Hmm.
if I'm on the highway, for example, if you're on the highway traveling at 70 miles an hour and a an 18 wheeler shed a tire 2 miles ahead of you and you have no idea, and eventually you roll right over that thing, potentially causing damage to your vehicle or causing the wheels to lose control on the surface of the street, that's a problem because the milliseconds it takes for your brain to take over and realize what's happening are potentially the milliseconds that matter the most.
Interesting. There was a Veritasium video that hit, I think, last week on self-driving cars, and he actually did the Wile E. Coyote test, which is the painted billboard
Yeah.
with nothing entered. The Waymo did stop with the car with the lidar. I don't know if it was a Waymo. Did stop, but the Tesla poof,
Yep.
right through
Right through.
right through
Right. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Another couple of things just very quickly in this area of the report, which was referred to as mobility, robotics, and drones. What I like most about drone applications are today, at least primarily medical, right? So you think about a soldier that needs assistance in the field, and there are a couple of companies doing this, right? You can scatter some drones and fly medication and blood out
Mm.
to the battlefield. And that's a significant shift in the way that we treat soldiers on the battlefield through our medics, right? So that one caught my attention. I thought it was pretty cool. And the other one that caught my attention was this statistic. 1 in 10 South Korean workers are now robots. So for every 10,000 workers there are in South Korea, there are also 1,000 robots assisting those 10,000 workers.
Wow.
1 in 10 workers in South Korea are now robots.
Hmm. I wonder what the stat is for the United States. That would be interesting too. And this is what exactly counts as a robot too. So you have
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
work your way through that. Pretty interesting. All right, but we are up against our last break. Want to remind our listeners they can contact Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@verisage.com. Of course, the website again is the Soul of Enterprise. Show notes, previews to upcoming shows. But right now, a word from our sponsors, including Woodard.
All right, all clear. Let me know when you're ready for your counting back.
Where do you want to go? Compute a little bit,
Oh,
and then I'll.
space.
Oh, you want to go to
Space.
space? You want to go to
Yeah.
space? All right.
Yeah, space all the way, man. That was the most fascinating one to me. And then I have these scenario plans that we'll flip through and encourage people to find them in the report. They're all one page. They
Right.
look a little like this. They're all one page scenario plans. And this one,
Mm-hmm.
for example, is in 2035. It's called Entertainment Takes the Wheel, and they walk through like how Disney has purchased Hyundai and turned vehicles into these living rooms on wheels with screens all over the place. So you get the idea.
Wild. Uh, you ready, Greg?
Oh, I'm ready. Yeah.
All right, Jordan, let's go.
All right, coming back in five, four, three, two.
And we are back on the Solar Enterprise. Again, I mentioned without Ron today, dealing with a personal issue. Hopefully, be back next week. We are talking about the Future Today Strategy Group 2025 Technology Trends Report. It's a massive report. As Greg mentioned, it's online. You can view it. And we have only dealt with, I think, 3 or 4 of the different sections of the 15 that are mentioned in here. And we're going to deal with one more. And this is the one that Greg has been looking forward to all show, and that is space. Tell me about the future trends in space, Greg.
Oh man. So what was most interesting to me about the space section is this specific sentence. Space is shifting from government driven to markets driven.
Amen. Hallelujah.
I love that. And we've seen it most prominently with SpaceX.
Yeah.
I'm sure none of your listeners are wholly unfamiliar with SpaceX. So they're all nodding their heads going, yeah, we can see that, right? SpaceX conducted 138 launches in 2024. They've already conducted 35 this year. There was a private spacewalk in 2024. I didn't know that. I missed that. There was a private spacewalk in 2024 supported by SpaceX on the capsule Polaris Dawn. There's a company called Vast Space. And in 2025, they plan to launch Haven 1, which will be the first commercial space station.
All
So
right.
space is absolutely shifting from government driven to markets driven. And I did learn a new phrase as I was going through
Yes.
the space section, and that phrase is cislunar. Now, for those of you who are just triggered because you think that it has some reference to cisgender, it does not, right?
Well, it's the cis is this means the same thing, but yeah, go
Exactly.
ahead.
Exactly. Cislunar is that space between Earth and the moon, right? So if you look at the report, one of the phrases they use is cislunar networking. And it says, quote, as we return to the moon, infrastructure like fiber optics and reliable internet will be essential, mirroring Earth's networks. This presents a significant opportunity to shape the future of lunar communications. And I think previously on a bonus episode, maybe I'd made reference to a future career, a space doctor, right? Treating people medically in space is a very different thing from treating them here on Earth. Yeah, there's this thing called gravity that we're pretty dependent on. And in space, you don't have any of that, at least last time I checked. And we also don't have vehicles like in sci-fi shows and movies today that can simulate gravity yet. I would imagine that's not too far off. But cislunar space, cislunar networking, that's all about the physical space between the Earth and the moon. And I love that. I do have a quote from the report, and the quote comes from Isaac Asimov. He wrote this in the book Foundation and Empire. You've previously talked to Robert Wood about Isaac Asimov's work, particularly iRobot, and here's the quote. If we are to find new frontiers for industry and energy, then the minds of space will provide.
Mm.
The minds of space will provide. And the reason I love that quote is because in this report, there are a series of what the authors refer to as scenario plans. They're one page, really easy to read scenario plans, and they're future scenario plans. So they're what ifs, right? They pull all of this together and they try to say to the reader, what if all of these technologies come to fruition? What does that world look like? And one of the scenario plans is called a New Homestead Act. And I'm just going to very quickly read a little bit of it. It's scenario year 2035, a new Homestead Act. As global demand for advanced batteries soars, humanity turns to the moon. Its rich deposits of lithium and rare earth elements essential for next-gen energy storage make lunar soil an economic gold mine. But as nations and private companies rush to establish a presence, the lack of clear governance leads to rising tensions. The U.S., leveraging its thriving private space sector, introduces the Lunar Homestead Act. This policy, carefully crafted to navigate the constraints of the Outer Space Treaty, I love how they make this stuff up, doesn't directly grant land ownership. Instead, it provides substantial financial incentives and support for US-based companies to develop lunar infrastructure and mine for resources. And then it keeps going from there. It's a fascinating glimpse into a what if in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's right out of For All Mankind. You know, it's very similar
Yes.
to what's
Yes.
going
Yeah.
on in that alternative universe that is there. Yeah,
Yep.
the commercially developed space station is interesting because that reminds me of hotels on the moon or hotels in space. I mean, I think it's very possible that within 25 years you'll be able to go to space and spend some time in a hotel in space. And I don't know if it's going to be a Hilton property. You better save up those points though for for sure.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Oh, you want to go to space for one night? That'll be 3.5 million points. Right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And no, they don't have a pool. There's no pool. There's no, like,
It's a logistics issue. I don't know.
it's like, nope, that's a strike. So if you're looking for a hotel with a pool, that's not gonna help you.
Yeah,
But
but there is, we are absolutely in the beginning of the next space race, right? We're
Mhm,
all rushing right now to get to the moon and establish a permanent presence there, in coordination, at least in the United States, with the private sector, right? Project Artemis from not the Andy Weir book, which by the way is an excellent book, but
mhm,
the actual NASA project Artemis is done in coordination with Boeing and SpaceX.
mhm.
And that seeks to develop a permanent presence on the moon. And a lot of scientists will make the statement, in effect, that establishing a permanent presence on the moon is a requirement for us to get to Mars successfully and repeatedly. And the reason it's a requirement is because once you get into outer space and you're free of the Earth's pull and gravity, right? You can now use the moon as a stepping off point to develop resources, to build, to mine, and getting from the moon to Mars is significantly easier from a thrust perspective. So you don't have to carry all of that fuel with you, right? So the
Mhm.
moon as a forward operating base to help humans establish a more permanent presence on Mars is by many seen as a requirement.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Although we probably could get to, well, we've gotten vehicles to Mars, so we could even get humans to Mars. But you're right, the energy that's required just to get through the Earth's atmosphere is the overwhelming majority of what you see in all of those rockets that launch. It's so really incredible. But yeah, I mean, I think the moon is 1/6 that of Earth, something like
Yeah.
that. Uh, so therefore, just do the division based on that alone, and you'll see what the results might be. Yeah, it's really fascinating to see. I don't know. I'm not sure if I probably will live to see space tourism, and I'm not sure if I would go. I don't know. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would absolutely go, but that's because I get excited about this stuff.
Okay.
Will
All
I live
right.
to see it? I think so. I don't. We're on the edge already. If I were a billionaire, I could buy a ticket to space today,
Right.
and several have,
Right.
right? That's probably not the kind of space tourism that your average leisure consumer is looking for. So what we're really talking about, the Hyatt in the sky.
Hmm.
Um, it's possible that that happens within our lifetime. It'll be very early days. Related to that, I've said to my kids before at dinner when we're talking about this stuff that during the exploration of the New World, a lot of people got in boats and they came over to what is now the United States with no intention of returning home.
Hmm.
The point was to land and develop a new life. And definitely within my kids' lifetimes, they will see pilgrims travel to Mars with no intention of returning home.
Hmm.
And that fact blows my mind. People will, in potentially even in our lifetimes, Ed, travel to Mars knowing that it's a one-way trip. And Mars is a dangerous place.
Yeah, but I would say this though is like Mars is a dangerous trip. It's a little bit different in this one. If you're going from Europe to North America, most of North America, you can at least once you get to North America plant stuff and grow stuff that you'll be able to eat, and there are other animals. The real equivalent would be going to Antarctica and figuring out a way to just rough it in Antarctica. That's really more the case, and that has not gone well. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a big dust up in one of the bases in Antarctica where someone committed a crime and got pretty messy pretty
Yeah.
quickly. But Greg, this has just been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for the pinch hit home run. I think it was a grand slam, really.
Oh,
Off the bench, grand slam home run with regard to this. Hopefully, Ron will be back next week. And the show that we were going to do this week, which is talking about Milton Friedman's essay, we will handle that next week. We're calling it Milton's Mandate: The Market, Morality, and Money. So, Greg, I will see you in 167 hours.
yes, you will, Ed. Thank you for having me today.
This has been The Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Knowledge Economy, sponsored by Woodard, building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. Join us next week on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. That's noon Pacific. And in the meantime, please feel free to visit us on the web at www.thesoulofenterprise.com.
Well, all clear. Great show.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
No problem. Hope you all have a great weekend and send my best wishes to Ron.
I will do that. Yep.
Take care.
All right. Take care. All right. We'll run a little overtime, Greg. We're not going to do a bonus, don't worry, but we can run a little overtime.
Yeah, man. There's another one in here that I really love. It's another one of these scenario plans.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about aerial corridors. So in the report, they talk a lot about drones and how the UAE has already established what they call an aerial corridor. And this aerial corridor is intended to be a safe operating space for drones 400, 500, 600 feet in the air. So they play this out into the future. They play it out into the year 2033. And the scenario plan is called Aerial Corridors. City skies now play host to a myriad of autonomous aerial vehicles moving through invisible corridors 100 to 400 feet above street level. What began as a small-scale delivery experiment has evolved into comprehensive transportation layer that transformed urban logistics. The shift accelerated after the global supply chain crisis of 2027. So they make things up to help,
Right.
demonstrate the point, right? But it goes on further to say cities have adapted with skyports crowning most taller buildings where ground robots receive packages from landing drones. That is absolutely something that should be happening and probably
Like this,
soon.
picture this little robot,
right. But
catching.
If you're going to operate delivery drones in particular now, right, especially in cities, because delivery drones in rural areas make far less sense from a density perspective, right? You need an operating base for these drones. You've got a bunch of rooftops not being used except for, air conditioning units across the city. And that's what they're postulating in this scenario plan, is that these skyports will develop on the top of some of the larger buildings that dot the skyline.
Well, that got me to thinking is when are we going to start to see the first houses that have a drop zone on the top of them?
Yep.
Because if you drop the package on top of the house, then you're worried less about theft.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
and then one day it's going to be really windy. That package is not going to make its drop zone. It's going to roll off the house. It's going to kill Fido, and that'll be the end of it.
Nah, Greg, come on, we can fix that. We can put put up gates and stuff.
Yep. But yeah, this aerial corridor plan finishes with: following Hurricane Isaac in 2030, drone swarms restored critical supply lines to isolated communities within hours, demonstrating their transformative impact on disaster response and helping cement their place in society. And that doesn't sound outlandish to me at all. That sounds very possible.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want my drone delivery though. I really do. I'm already like that. So what? They got the package to me in less than 2 hours.
But did you do it with a person?
Maybe you did it with a person. Come on. Like, give me a drone. Or at least a robot running up to the house or something like that. I mean, give me that. Don't give me this 2-hour delivery nonsense.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me. My wife's birthday is coming up next week, and I bought a couple of things for her on Amazon. I placed the order about 2 hours ago, and the window they gave me was between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
The massive amount of resources required to pull that off, not just my delivery, but to have the forward operating position for the things I decided I wanted to order, to have someone available tomorrow at 4 a.m. That sounds cruel and unusual. I would much rather it be a drone instead of Now maybe they're getting paid well. That's neither here nor there, right? But it seems like there are a tremendous amount of resources dedicated, particularly by Amazon, to getting us our stuff as quickly as possible. And drones are absolutely inevitable because Amazon's a corporation. They look at the costs associated with what they're currently doing, and they are highly motivated to develop the technology that you're talking about. When I can get a burrito delivered to my house via drone, I'm going to be very happy.
There you go. So this has happened today. I had my appointment for my annual physical, and one of the medications that I am taking I mean, I have enough pills, but I was on my last refill. I let them know that I had switched over to Amazon as my pharmacy. So they're like, okay, so she types in the renewal and that they go to Amazon. I no sooner get into my car than I get a text from Amazon saying that your prescription has been delivered and we are going to fill it. Now, what would be interesting to see is like, will I get it? It's possible I'll get it tomorrow. Like, which just take yourself through that. Like when you and I were growing up, you got the script, had to write it out bring it to the pharmacy. It was very possible that you weren't going to get it that day immediately. It would be come back tomorrow. So now we're talking like it's even faster.
Yep.
It's mind-boggling. I don't know.
In the trends report, they talk about telehealth adoption driving new revenue streams for healthcare companies, which makes a ton of sense. And they also talk about consumer healthcare disruption, particularly Amazon Health and Cost Plus Drugs. That's Mark Cuban's.
Yeah, that's Mark Cuban's. I looked at both of those too. Amazon was just easier for me. So
yeah. That's amazing to me because I get those USPS delivery notification. Like
yes, I do too.
Informed delivery is what it's called. So every day the USPS sends me an email showing me all the mail I'm going to get that day. And at the bottom, there's a section for packages, right?
Yeah.
And it's Carelon or one of the pharmaceutical delivery companies is who we use with our health insurance, right? And I see that package hit the USPS informed delivery report about a week and a half before they show up at the house. Like it's wildly inefficient in comparison to what you just described.
Right. On that though, that informed delivery, have you noticed that there's now ads in it?
Yep. Well, I mean, okay, it's a pretty useful service. So if you're going to throw ads on there, and you know what the ads at least I've noticed are the ones that used to be the bulk mail. Now they're just in the email, and I don't get the bulk mail anymore.
Yeah, it's even better. Delete.
Yeah. Yep.
No, because I flip through the informed delivery in the morning. And I'm like, okay, you know.
Yeah. I know that like I don't get a lot of mail, to be completely honest, right? That's important, right?
No.
Right?
No.
So occasionally I'll see something and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I need to go get the mail today. Because usually it's 4 or 5 days in between me walking my lazy butt.
Thursdays and Sundays. I get it Thursdays and Sundays. So Thursday morning and Sunday, and then that's all. Pick it up, and you're right. 60. Well, if you subtract out holiday cards, it's probably 80 to 90% of it just goes right in the trash.
Yeah. I usually say that Tuesdays are the best day because the recycling bin is already at the curb to be picked up, and I can just take the mail and put it in the recycling bin.
Yeah. Well, the big one for you, and this is about to stop for you, is because your daughter is going on to college, but all of the college crap that you
oh my
get
gosh.
the mailers.
Oh my gosh. And then my son took the practice SAT already, so his have started showing up. The amount of print material that these colleges send is outrageous.
Yeah, and it's not to our kids, it's to us. I don't know if you've picked up on that. It's not to them. I mean, they are addressed to them. But the whole thing is really for the parent because they know the kids are looking at it going, what's this? Why are you sending me mail?
Yep. My son gets the biggest kick because he's younger. He's in the 9th grade, right? And he's like, Stetson University sent me a piece of mail. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's cool. He feels recognized. He feels noticed, right? And he's starting to get a little excited about it. But it is nonstop 2 to 3 pieces from different universities every single day.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
I know.
good one. Yeah, I'd almost forgotten about those.
Ours, the one that was over the top for Sean was OSU, Oklahoma State University. Man, did they! Oh my God, they must have spent with all the stuff that we got. It has to be somewhere between $200 and $300 worth of. I mean, because these were like complex mailers with fold outs and like lumpy shit in it, and it was just like way over the top. So
Beautiful
was that?
paper. Yeah.
Yeah, was that? Did you have a school that was like that for your daughter?
I did, and we were so impressed with the communications we received from the University of South Carolina. They
Ah,
have their
okay.
they have their act together. They are very good at coordinating the messaging sent to my daughter, the messaging sent to me and my wife, the print materials that come in the mail. They're not overwhelming. They're beautifully done. I, I could not believe when I heard my wife, born and raised in the state of Georgia, went to the University of Georgia, say, if Sophia goes to the University of South Carolina, I'm not going to complain.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
OSU is like
the
that.
paper quality, the high quality ink,
Yeah, that tactile, like slightly
yeah,
rubbery thing, and that you get when you get a high end credit card.
I look at that and I'm like, so I'm clearly paying too much. Is that what you're telling me? I'm going to pay
Yeah.
too much? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we last week. I don't know why we're talking about mail, but last week or 2 weeks ago, we got what we used to be called Restoration Hardware is now just RH. We got their catalog in the mail. I'm like, what did we ever buy at Restoration Hardware that warrants us saying this has got to be a $50 book? I mean,
yeah. Biggest post office in the United States is on the river in Chicago because of the Sears Roebuck Corporation and the Sears catalog that went out every year.
Going out every year. Wow.
Yeah. And it was amazing because in our lifetime, and more recently than not, Sears stopped sending their catalog primarily because Amazon. And then a couple of years later, Amazon started sending us a catalog. So they send a print catalog with like toys in it around Christmas time.
Yes, around Christmas time, which I thought was actually pretty cool. It was like, but again, that was really for us. That wasn't for our kids. That was for us and the nostalgia of, oh, look, a toy catalog.
Yeah.
Maybe I should buy from Amazon.
Yep.
Like I don't already, Anyway.
Well, great show today. Thank you very much for having me, Ed. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the pinch hit for sure, and we knew this was going to be fun. Ron's going to be disappointed that he didn't get a chance to run through some of this stuff with you, but I know we'll pick him up on a bonus episode, and he'll cycle back to it at some point. Yep. Was there any other section that we didn't get to that you think that maybe our listeners would want to pay a little bit of attention to? We don't have to go through it. I'm just saying that
I did really enjoy the metaverse section.
Okay.
We killed it during the live show just because we didn't have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I noted about the metaverse section is they are still saying that industrial applications for HoloLenses of any, things you put on your head are right around the corner. And I'm starting to have a hard time believing that because we've been hearing it for 20 years now.
Yeah.
But I do love that section because it's fun. It's very forward thinking. And I did not know, for example, that South Korea enacted the metaverse industry law in February of 2024. What's that? It's a law that supports and regulates the metaverse, prioritizing permissionless development with oversight. It sounds like government overreach in a completely unnecessary area.
Permissionless, but not really.
Yeah, right. Permissionless from the government, right?
Permissionless until we want to get it involved,
yeah,
and then
the metaverse section would be an interesting one for your listeners.
So here's here's a question for you. I was thinking about this. So you're obviously familiar with the Apple Air, what are they? The Google glasses, Vision Pros. And you're familiar with the Sphere, and then you probably heard Ron and I talk about Cosm, which is these local places where you can go to. Which is more likely to succeed in the next 5 years? the Vision Pro type technology, or inside your house, what was your media room, you will effectively put in the curved, not 360, it's probably more like 180 degree LED screen that you will be able to immerse yourself in.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
the latter is more likely, believe it or not.
absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that because there is a scenario plan from the report in
Oh,
my
is there?
hands in the entertainment section, which might also
Mm.
be fun for your listeners, right? Called Best Seat in the House. Now it's dated 2040, so they're going out pretty far on this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when every seat is a front row seat? Rising real estate prices and advanced immersion technologies have intersected to create digital first entertainment experiences. Major concerts, political rallies, sporting events, and more are staged for largely virtual audiences. That's not a statement that makes me go, no, that'll never happen. Right. And then they go on to say that the in-person experience, on the other hand, becomes an extravagant luxury accessible only to the highest end consumer. To which I've noted that's already happened. Have you looked at concert tickets lately?
Oh
They're
yeah,
$300-$400.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I.
I'm all for the home experience.
Mm-hmm.
Movie theaters have proven to us that they will scrape the bottom for every penny they can find and take it from us without improving their facilities
Mm-hmm.
significantly. People enjoy sitting in the comfort of their home and entertaining.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I just look at the screens that are available. I happen to, I don't know if I've talked about this with you, but I am now, I've started a new career, Greg. I am now the color commentator for the Allen Eagle baseball team.
Oh, amazing. That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes. So I got my headset, but the headset that got sent, I needed I'll get this right, and a quarter inch from a quarter inch jack to an eighth inch jack. I had the other way, but I didn't have this. So I had to go to the Best Buy to
Hmm.
try to find this. I could only get it in a kit that contained multiple things, not just the one thing I needed. And I needed it that night, so I couldn't just order it on Amazon and have it show up because it was, anyway. Fortunately, when I got to the venue, they had another one, so I was able to return this thing to Best Buy, no harm, no foul. But my point in this is that while I'm in the Best Buy just looking around, I'm looking at it and I'm going, 95-inch TV, $700. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Hmm.
So how long before we can put those things together in a curved room? I don't think it's that far away. I
No.
really, really don't.
No, I have this wall that you're looking at. On the other side of it is the basement den, and there is
Mm-hmm.
a 92-inch television hanging on the wall, and it was sub $1,000.
It's just, this is just insane to me.
Yeah, yeah. So and the curved monitors, by the way, that Samsung is producing right now are
Uh-huh.
very cool.
Uh-huh.
They are 32, 37-inch curved monitors,
Mm-hmm.
primarily on the higher end of the price point right now because gamers love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, I have a customer and I visit them in person, and the founder of the company has one of these curved monitors sitting on their desk, and every single time I go, don't get out of your seat. I'm coming into your office. I want to stand behind your desk and see this thing. They're really really impressive. The OLED screens in particular. Now all this stuff's still a little expensive, so I think that's going to stop immediate consumer adoption.
Mm-hmm.
But we're there. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a sound bar in the basement here. Instead of putting in, Dolby Atmos 7.1, because then I'd have to put holes in the ceiling and I have to run wires, then I have to do the patchwork and the painting, and I'm like,
Mm.
forget it. I'm just gonna buy a sound bar. I was watching a movie the other night with my kids, and I swear to you, I had to rewind it. The sound bar projected a sound behind me.
Yeah. When the HomePod, the original HomePod was falling off the market, I bought the second one,
Yep.
and now I have the stereo pair of the home. It's fantastic.
Isn't it? Isn't
It's
it?
fantastic.
Apple
So,
did
because
everything.
it's Dolby Atmos, and it's just
Yep.
yeah,
It's Dolby, and it supports spatial audio.
right. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I don't think we're far off, Ed. And these media rooms and homes, and it doesn't even need to be a media room, right? We have a guest bedroom that we could turn into like a place where we immerse ourselves if we need to, right?
Right.
That's not too far off at all, and it's absolutely going to be in the home instead of a an alternate location
Hmm.
where it's a shared space or something along those lines, right? Because over time, as we know, technology gets cheaper and cheaper, not always, but most of the time, and it will just become more and more accessible to the home consumer.
Right. Yeah. Wild,
Yeah,
wild stuff. All right, Greg. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week.
yeah, absolutely. From
All
an
right.
undisclosed location for
From an
operational security
that's right.
purposes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.